Welcome to this second session of our international webinar on mobilities shaping destinations. We're starting this afternoon session about digital fingerprints, technological tools, and tourism mobility. And this is a session that will be introduced. We are happy, we are honored. It is a pleasure for us to have with us as a keynote speaker, Dr. Yang from the Temple University in United States. He's Dr. Yang. He's a professor in the Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management at the Temple University. His PhD in Geography, Master of Statistics, and Master of Arts in Economics from the University of Florida. And as you maybe know, he research lie in tourism demand analysis, regional tourism growth, as well as hotel, financial, and real estate analysis. He has a very solid multidisciplinary background, and he has investigated a lot regarding questions that are key in the hospitality and tourism industry, offering unique insights and perspectives. He's a very well-known author, publishing academic papers in top-tier tourism and hospitality journals. And probably you know him also because recently he created and he launched this COVID-19 tourism index that is specifically what he will talk about during his presentation. It's interesting because this second session, it's about digital fingerprints, technological tools, and tourism mobility. And specifically, this recently created tool, the COVID-19 Tourism Index by Dr. Yang, it's a good example on how to use the digital fingerprint in order to know better and to give data for the development and better knowledge of what is happening in the tourism sector and the hospitality activity. Again, we're very happy to have him here. We plan to have him in person. It was something that we were talking many times ago, that it will be a pleasure for us to invite him to be here. But well, the situation that is not allowing us to do it. But well, we'll see in the coming future when everything changes that we will have him with us. I think that that's for now the presentation. And Dr. Yang, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Salvador. And it is my great pleasure to be here and to have this keynote speak about, COVID-19 tourism index. It's what Salvador said. This is a very good example that we are telling the world. The tourism researcher can use this digital data, can use this big data to timely monitor and analyze some real life events. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to start my presentation here. So the topic is monitoring and analyzing the impact of COVID-19 on tourism, COVID-19 tourism index. So if you have any questions during my presentation, please feel free to type in on the YouTube chat box, and I will be more than happy to answer it at the end of my presentation. Okay, I'm Dr. Yan, and I'm coming from Temple University at United States. So very brief background information about COVID. We are all kind of, shocked by the intensity and the scope of the COVID impact. It's the tourism, the travel industry. We are heavily impacted by this COVID pandemic because our industry heavily relies on the mobility of human beings. Right, so with a lot of travel restrictions, tourists are not able to move across the border. They are not able to visit international destinations. So this is really, really very devastating to our industry. I pull out two photos here, It's very empty spot in Vatican City, which used to be very, very overcrowded. And another picture, the beach, still a lot of beach chairs there, but we're not able to see tourists. So this is typical of the photo, the typical image of tourism industry during the COVID-19 pandemic time. So without people, we are hardly doing our business. One reason that COVID-19 is greatly impacting the tourism industry is because a large number of countries imposed travel restrictions. They just allow their local citizens or permanent residents to come to their country, and therefore tourists with a travel visa or with a citizenship from other countries that are not allowed to enter the border. And very interesting, a lot of countries heavily impacted by COVID are very tourism dependent countries, like those countries in Europe and some countries in Asia. And I pull out this map, right? This is the map published by Tourism Economics, their database called Global Travel Surveys. As you can see here, a majority of countries imposed the travel restrictions so that the tourists, international tourists, are getting harder and harder and sometimes impossible to get into the country for tourism activities. Based on this general scenario, UNWTO, United Nations World Tourism Organization, they estimated that the pandemic will result in a total global loss of more than 730 million US dollars. Okay, I know that different agents may have different predictions, different estimations about this total economic loss. This is the data I pull out from the UNWTO, one of the most, authoritative source, I think. Some countries are really, really suffering. Okay, some countries are really, really suffering. And for example, I got data from 4 countries from 4 different continents, different areas of the world. Like in Japan, the statistics says, 60% of projected loss from tourism-related consumption from inbound tourists. That leads to about 4 trillion Japanese yen loss in 2020 from international tourism. In the Southern Hemisphere, we have Brazil. The Brazil tourism is expected to lose about 7.6 US billion dollars during the COVID pandemic time. In France, that's going to be an estimate from WTTC about 48 billion euro, and in the United States, the WTTC estimates is another 155 billion US dollars in the year of 2020 because of the COVID pandemic. Therefore, considering this very gigantic impact of COVID-19 and intricacies of global tourism economy, so it is particularly challenging and at the same time very critical for the policymakers to monitor recovery of tourism across different sectors from different perspectives and across different countries. So this basically motivates us to come up with the idea to do this index. So we developed this analytical tool called COVID-19 Tourism Index to monitor the pandemic tourism effects. This is a numerical and visualization tool. Later on, I will demonstrate the interactive, dashboard part of it. So it shows the information about potential travel and tourism recovery at different levels, at global level, at a regional level, and at the country level. So very important, the key part of index is that we set up a benchmark of normal levels. So in this case, it means 100. It is the number that we assume if there's no pandemic that the tourism can achieve. So that's the 100 is defined as normal level. Okay, so every number can compare to this 100. It's just like the normal time, the time without the COVID. So we developed 4 sub-indexes to generate the daily value for each country. So the index is updated. We can get a daily value across different sub-indexes, 5 sub-indexes, and 1 overall index. So these 5 indexes are aviation index, hotel index, pandemic index, interest index, and mobility index. So aviation and hotel, we are using the data, the daily data, to measure the performance in the aviation level and at hotel industry. And pandemic index, we are measuring the situation of pandemics based on the COVID-19 cases per 1 million inbound tourists. And interest index, we measure the online interest from a Google search. And the mobility index, we measure the level of mobility in tourism-related locations like national parks, amusement parks, and major transportation hubs. All right, the reason why we choose these 5 sub-indexes is very intuitive. The first 2, aviation and hotel sub-indexes, they are used to measure the 2 major sectors of the tourism economy. And the pandemic index is very important because, the tourism recovery have to reflect, the pandemic situation. Regardless how strong the tourism industry is performing, if the pandemic is not controlled, so the industry recovery is still incomplete. So we still put the pandemic sub-index here. The number 4 sub-index, interest sub-index, examine the latent travel demand. Okay, so once you search that on Google, probably you are interested in future. So we really want to understand the recovery of latent travel demand. And last one, the mobility, because that measures the mobility, the reality of mobility within a country at this period of time. It is also a very important way to understand the recovery of tourism at a particular point of time. So we collect data to fit in our index structure. We get hotel data with the generous support from STR, Smith Travel Research, the world leading hotel data vendors. We get flight data from ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization. They provide this international airport departure data. And the pandemic data we collect from European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. And interest data we collect from search volume index from Google Trends. And the mobility data we get from the project called Google Mobility Tracker. They are using the Google apps to locate the potential level of mobility across different types of points of interest. And we have some tourism data. That's 2019's data. We get either from UNWTO or the World Bank database. So before that, before we are merging these 5 sub-indexes together, we have to do a lot of checks. The first check we have to do is trying to make sure there is a statistic coherence. We are checking the definition of different data sources across different countries to make the data is internationally comparable. And we also validate data from alternative sources to make sure that it is reliable. And also the raw data was 7-day moving average to iron out the missing data value and the day of week effect and some abnormal outliers. So as I said, we define the normal time value as 100, right? So now here's the question: how we define a baseline of normal time, the normal level, that's the benchmark, right? So what we are doing is that we are trying to do an adjustment, right? We have 2019's data, and also we have the January 2020, the first months of 2020's data. So in this case, we are creating an adjustment factor. We just assume that there's no pandemic. or the pandemic is not greatly influencing tourism industry in January 2020, and we are using the ratio between January 2020 and January 2019 as the adjustment factors. So we are applying the adjustment factor to the 2019's value to get the normal level value of 2020 by assuming that if there's no pandemic, what's the normal level value can look like in 2020. So we did this for the aviation and hotel data. And for the interest in mobility data, it's very different because we cannot get access to 2019 data. So actually, according to the Google suggestion, we are taking the 5 weeks data in January 3rd and February 6th, 2020 as the baseline. I know that in some countries like China, this is not applicable, but in the majority of the sample, this is something reliable. And finally, we are trying to, doing this kind of truncation. Okay, sometimes you can get higher than 100 value, but in this case, a maximum value I can give in this index is 100 because any value larger than 100 is not meaningful by the purpose of its index, which aims to track the recovery of tourism. So we are using the current number divided by the benchmark number to see, whether they are what's their situation compared to the normal time without the COVID. And another index which is different from the rest, which called pandemic index, because in the rest we want a high value, right? If there's better tourism performance, better hotel performance, better aviation performance, that means they are getting better. But in the pandemic index, it's been measured by the number of COVID cases per 1 million international tourists. The higher value means a worse situation. So we have to do some manipulation. So we are actually using this equation to calculate pandemic index. And there's a Z here. Z is the number of daily confirmed COVID cases per 1 million inbound tourists in 2019. And in this case, we assume that if the case is less than 1 per 1 million inbound tourists, that means, the country is relatively safe. The pandemic is not going to be any big issue for inbound tourism. So once we get all those 5 sub-indexes, we have to aggregate them to create this overall index. So we are using the geometric means to get of the 5 sub-index to get the overall index. Why we are using the geometric means? Because the geometric means it seems to be better than the linear aggregation, because in this case, we are assuming that the sub-indexes are less substitutable to each other. Okay, they are not substitutable. For example, a lower performance of hotel cannot be fully substituted by a higher level of aviation. So as they are less substitutable, according to the previous literature, a geometric mean aggregation is more reasonable. And when we are creating the overall index, we exclude the interest and mobility sub-index because there are some issues of the Google's market share in some countries like Russia and China. And another issue is some data issues with the Google related indexes. So let's take a look at the index statistics. We pull out this latest data, as of the November 21. So that's the latest data as of November 21. So we have the first column in this table is the overall index. Each parenthesis means how many countries in this sample. And we have sub-indexes of aviation, hotel, pandemic interest, and mobility. And also we divided countries by geographical groups: Africa, Asia, Central America, Eastern Europe, so on and so forth. So as you can see here, the total the total value, the total of the world now, according to the index is 21, is 27.2, about 27.2. It's far lower than 100. So that means still we have a long journey to go under the current pandemic situation. So we have a total of 100 countries for the overall index sample. And if we take a look at the pattern, we find that, the recovery is highest in Oceania, like New Zealand and Australia, and lowest in Eastern Europe, according to the index average. For example, in Oceania, the average is approximately 44. In Eastern Europe, this number is really low. It's lower than 20, okay? There are different stories in two areas. And regarding the sub-indexes, the Africa recorded faster aviation recovery. Their aviation index is almost 41. And Eastern Europe, West Europe, they have a very, very low hotel sub-index. So that means that the recovery in the hotel sector is very, very slow. All right, so and so on and so forth, we can analyze the pattern of this index across different sub-indexes across different geographical regions. If we take a look at the global average, how it changed over time, this green line is the overall index, and we'll also present how different sub-indexes change over time. According to this thick green line, we find that the overall index bottomed out in April 18. So this is a minimum in April 18, that's about 15, that's global minimum. And then after this local minimum, I'm not sure whether it's local minimum or global minimum, it bounced up very quickly. Okay. And some latest data, we have United States data. United States now is like 32.37. And we have the Spain's data, and the Spain's recovery level is slightly lower than United States. It's 20.14. And also we present the subcategories, different sub-indexes. Actually, as you can see here, even the pandemic situation in the United States is very bad, only 15. But aviation hotel are performed higher than Spanish cases. All right, so we can do this kind of benchmark using the overall index and sub-indexes to do the comparison. So I'm going to jump over to this sensitivity analysis because, sometimes when we construct the index, we are very subjective. We have to try different ways to show that our result is robust, no matter what kind of method we choose, no matter what kind of the parameter we choose. As you can see from the right-hand matrix-based scatter plot, we find that our result is generally very robust with alternative method, with alternative measures. And after we did this calculation, compile the data from different sources, we do the dashboard, okay? And we developed the WebGIS dashboard, okay? Hosted on ASRI ArcGIS web service to supply and present current and retrospective data. And this is what it looks like. So this is data dashboard, and please feel free to go to the website, and the website name is called COVID-19 tourism.com. Okay, sorry, I don't have time to write out the whole domain name. Later on I will show it. So it is COVID-19 tourism.com. So this is like the dashboard I put here. So from the left-hand side, this is the country list, the country by the latest index, starting from the lowest one. And currently out of 100 countries, the Czech Republic had the lowest COVID-19 overall index. And then in the middle, upper part of middle, it presents the average of the world as of the latest time, which is November 14, 2020. And also you can click the panel to show the sub-index summary. And also we have this latest time graph and by geography. And once you go to the table, it shows you the, each country's data. You can click each country to do that. I'm going to quickly demonstrate that, quickly demonstrate how to do that. So this is the real website, COVID-19. tourism.com. Once I get there, so it load all the information. For example, I can search it, I can click it, I can go to the map view to navigate it. For example, I am very interested in, let's see, Austria. Okay, let's see Austria. I can click Austria on the left-hand side, go to Austria, and then in the map view, it will zoom into Austria and pop out information about Austria here. Like the current index for Austria is 15.25, and what is the aviation index, hotel index, all those sub-index, and also show me the information, how it evolves over time. All right. So that's the brief view of the dashboard. We also have the mobile website. So if you are using cell phone, you can do that. And how to use the index. So the index provides very far-reaching utility for different components. For the researchers, we can do, it provides very valuable, unique data set, and the daily data capture high-frequency tourism industry performance, right? So you can run econometric models, right? And you can use these models, use this data as control variables in other econometric models, and you can generate statistics and parameter inputs for future simulations. So we did like an impact analysis. We found the COVID impact in this case, which is kind of very high, very large negative value at the very beginning, but its impact is getting close to zero. But currently, again, with along with another upsurge COVID situation in most countries, so the negative impacts there become more significant. And for the destinations, we can do a lot of things with index, like to benchmark, compare the data, and to have the potential travelers aware of the situation, and to come out with the tourism recovery policies. And like in this case, we can use the index to do the forecasting, to forecasting tourism demand based on the index. And government level, mostly we want to, based on index, we can allocate resources, right, to under different scenarios to do the simulation. How can we use different policies to help to facilitate industry to recover? Okay, so we have a lot of partners. They are using our data, like Bank of America, Bloomberg, Scotia Bank. So those major consulting firms. We also have a lot of researcher scholars using our data to conduct rigorous tourism and economics research. So please feel free to get in touch with me, just in case if you have any questions. This is my personal contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yang, for your interesting presentation, informative presentation, and also your I'm sorry, there is something that
Yes, please feel free to type the question on YouTube if you have any.
Okay, yeah, I was telling that thank you, Yang, for this informative and suggestive presentation about the tool, and also about the how to use it and the different possibilities that from different sectors or stakeholders could have in order to take advantage on it. There are some questions in the chat, in the YouTube chat. I will address them to you. First, it's from Mohammed Talwake. He's asking, dear Professor Yang, knowing this data, how could help the collapsed industries such as aviation tourism and hospitality industry to get a quick recovery in the coming years. So he's asking about how this data could be applied from these sectors. Which suggestions do you have?
Yes, that's a good question. So one thing you can do is to do the forecasting. That probably is more scientifically rigorous. If you are really good at forecasting, this is going to be very valuable resources. The second way is that, that different countries are at different stages of tourism recovery. So probably if you are in a stage 3 and you want to take a look at the country in stage 4, take a look at their recovery curve, okay? Like their recovery curve in the hotel industry, in the aviation industry. Probably you may get some insights on the potential turning point and or potential, backslash, let's say, from other countries' evidence. So that's another thing I think that index can really do to help different sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. There is another question from another of our doctoral students. It's from Jonathan Orama. He's asking what aggregation operator was used to obtain the overall index value, and are special sub-indices given more importance than other in the aggregation? This is a more methodological or technical question.
Yes, that's a very good question. That's kind of one potential limitation, right? So we are giving equal weights, even though we are doing geometric means, we are going to give the equal weights to different components. But in reality, maybe some component is more important than others. So we are using the easier way. Why? Because it is so hard to determine which sector is more important. And most importantly, this importance is country by country, right? So we do not want to open another can of worms if we decide to go to this route. And our general census between our group members is trying to keep it more simple or more intuitive, at least stage. But very good question.
Okay, thank you. There is another question from Georgina Ginet about the availability of the COVID index, but we have answered directly ourselves, giving her the website for the COVID. So if you want to add something, but she has now, not only she, but all the audience have now the website. There is also another question asking for the presentation of the study, if it is possible to have it. You have to know that this is recorded, and then as you are here registered for this webinar, you can get it when you want. Also directly. But there are some other questions. There are a question from Professor Russo that is also co-chairing this seminar. He's asking about, she's thinking about possible avenue of exploitation of the index, and he's agreeing that it seems a great tool to make sense of the effects or certain policy decisions. And he's asking about, you mean that the index could be also a way to monitor the decisions, the policy decisions related to the constriction of interregional mobility. What do you mean about that?
Right. So yeah, I'm reading the chat box from Russell. So I think he mentioned that aviation possibly overrepresented by large countries like U.S. So this is the map of the aviation index. Actually, it covers more than 190 countries. So we are no. It also cover many probably less developed countries in Africa. So it is actually very representative sample. And also the inter-regional mobility, like I think probably you mean cross-country mobility. So this is another important things because I think this index is mostly focusing on the more focusing on the inbound tourism instead of domestic tourism, if there are any. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have also a question that it's again it's more technical or methodological, that is about the construction of the baseline, and I think that is something that probably you have think about a lot. That is of course because of the characteristics of the pandemics and because the world situation, you used as the baseline the first months of the previous year. That means January and February. But my question is about: did you did any kind of analysis or test regarding how this baseline, based in only these 2 months, could generate some bias? Depending of the seasonality of the tourism activity in the different countries. It's something because, as you know, I am talking from the Mediterranean, that you know that it's especially seasonal place. So it's probably it's different what it happens at the beginning of the year than in the middle of the year. Then it's something that I'm curious to know about.
Very good question. Excellent question. So, so actually, we are not just using the 1 year, the first month or second month. We are creating adjustment factor. For example, we find that the tourism increased 40% from the January 2019 to 2020, and we keep in mind this is first 40% increase. And then if we get the benchmark for, let's say, May, and we are applying this 40% increase to the previous year's May's data to get this year's data. So the benchmark is more like, we are constructing the adjustment in factor. It's not like we are using the January or February data, because as you said, that, the seasonality, it is so dominant in tourism.
Okay. Thank you so much. I was sure that you were dealing with this special, important issue, and it was not in at least I couldn't get from your initial presentation. Right. Thank you so much. Is there any final question? If not, we are just on time, so we will follow with the afternoon session with the first of the presenters. Thank you so much, Dr. Yang. And as you see, as it was, it could be expected, the COVID-19 tool has been again has been created again a very exciting moment in this case in our webinar. Thank you so much for your work and for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. So we go for the next presentation. It's now it's time for Joan Borràs, who he's from Eurecat, the Technology Center of Catalonia, who is presenting a paper that is. This paper was I was also participating in the authoring of the paper, but he will be him who is going to present the paper. The paper is about using big data for managing tourism flows. Please, the floor is yours, Joan.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks, Salvador. Can you hear me? Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about how we can use big data technology for managing tourism flows. I will explain main data sources, and also we will see which are the projects we are working on in Eurecat. And also we will see which are the the future and current challenges to improving, not in just getting information, so trying to give this information for managing tourism flows. First of all, I would like to, it's not, okay, sorry. I would like it's big data. The presentation is called big data, but indeed we think more about smart data. Yeah, we don't need the data that has to be big. We believe more in other kind of characteristics of this data, like the value. So maybe sometimes it's better to reduce this volume and bring in more relevance to other kind of data. So we like more to talk about small data, but of course, as time is going on, now we have the possibility to get information from big data companies or data sources. Of course, the value is also increasing. First of all, I want to summarize here all the data sources that we think are being used in several projects, also here in Eurecat or other research centers, and the characteristics of them and why we think they can be used for managing tourism flow. First of all, the mobile phone operator data can give us indicators like the presence of persons, duration of the visits, overnights, etc., and do some kind of segmentations like the residents, tourists, excursionists. But also important is that when you have the raw data of this kind of mobile operating data, you can make segmentations of mobility behavior. So you can make these indicators grouping by the behavior of this mobility. So you can try to understand how they move the users or visitors that visited a coastal area or an inland area, for example. Geographic granularity, it's not high precision, but depending on the number of antenna can give us like a 500 meters of a grid. We are working on several projects on these data sources. Also, financial transactions are useful data set that can be used for mobility, because with the transaction given by the users or the visitors in a destination can be tracked also, so you can understand what are the visitors buying in a destination. And also you can track the same visitor, what buys in a destination and what is buying in another destination. So you can also make some kind of behavior mobility, and also you can make segmentations about who is a resident, who is tourist, who are excursionists, and so on. This the information is normally aggregated in a postal code region, because the kind of companies of financial transactions cannot give us information about the specific businesses. Also, some kind of data sources are GPS devices. I will show you later some examples. We can see here more exact location, to see the geographic granularity. And we understand here more specific aspects of mobility behavior. We can also use GPS from apps, applications. We will see also then some examples. Google searches are also being doing for predicting visitors. As Yang said, Google searches can also be introduced here for this predicting, forecasting of visitors. So we think that this kind of data can be explored. We are exploring here new projects for trying to predict visitors in destinations, combining several data sources, and one of them can be Google searches and also Google Analytics. The next one is booking platforms. We are working on getting information from a booking system of attractions. So this information will be able to give us the forecasting of predicting visitors in a destination. There are also some kind of booking platforms like aviation or hotels that could be also useful to make this kind of prediction. Another data source is social networks. We have several projects here that we will talk later, so we can understand the mobility behavior of the users that publish in on social network, and we can apply here some artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms to try to apply some clustering and analyzing the mobility behavior and so on. And then the last but not least is the Internet of Things. We can include Wi-Fi sensors, so we can predict, we can understand the mobility of the users that have a Wi-Fi connection on in the mobile device. So we can understand this mobility between the places we connect the sensors. We'll see here now some examples that we were working the last years and the current years. This is an example of the first one we did. This is examples from GPS devices. We gave GPS devices to the visitors in Tarragona city center. So we were able to understand which were exactly the states they were moving, how much time they were spending there. And here we see some example of the streets the people were crossing on, and the right map you can see here. This is the city center. The red, the color explains that the time that visitors stayed there in the place, and the length of the bar is the number of people that were crossing this place. So we could see places that not many people were there, but they stayed a lot of time, like the first, the left bottom place, and some other places that a lot of people went there and stayed a lot of time. Here is another example that we gave GPS devices to cruiser visitors in Tarragona, to the port of Tarragona, so we could see where they moving on in the Tarragona city. Also, we could see which were the connection between the points of interest. Using the applications, we could also get information from the GPS, from those users that gave us information. And then we could understand where the users were moving on, and also we could also match if a user checks for some interest, like if a user checks for an activity or a beach, we could understand if at the end they went to the beach or not. Here, an example of social networks from Twitter. We could these are the districts in Barcelona. We could understand mobility between districts in Barcelona of tourists during working days and comparing with the tourists during the weekends. We have here some other examples using Twitter social network. Here, the left, the first map, we could see the mobility in Catalonia with the top 20 cities in Catalonia of the national visitors. We did an algorithm with machine learning to separate visitors and residents, so understanding the patterns of publishing in Twitter, and we could see which were the mobility between the cities. The second chart is the same results, but of only English tourists. We could see the connections between one city to another city, with the coral red giving us the highest frequency. On the right map, we can see for example, the culture visits of English tourists. We could segment the English tourists if they have it. Taking into account the language or the origin that they give us in Twitter profile. But we're also trying to do some new exploring analytics, like clustering of users' behavior, taking into account the distance mobility within a city, if they visit popular points or not popular points. When I talk about points, it's point of interest. The type of point of interest they visit, when they visit, during the morning, during the afternoon. This, in fact, is one of the PhD Jonathan Onorama is working on. Also, some kind of new exploring analytics are what is the impact of a particular popular point of interest, like could be Sagrada Familia or a theme park. So we could see the users that visited Sagrada Familia, what more they visited during their trip, or what else they visit during the day, or during the year, or the next year or the last year. So we are trying to understand if a user visits one place, what other things are doing around the area or in other places. Here we have an example using mobile phone operator data from Orange. We could get the information from antennas, and first thing to do was to classify what is a tourist, what is an excursionist, and what is a nightlife visitor, analyzing this behavior. So this was done in Barcelona city, and we could understand the mobility between the different districts, and also we could segment depending on the number of days that they were visiting Barcelona in the case of tourists. So we could see the number that they visit different districts. The same for Catalonia. We did during 2008. We tried to understand which were the mobility. It cannot be seen here. These are different destinations in Catalonia, so we could see if the visitors were visiting one destination and then another destination. Also, another indicator we got here, it was the number of days they spent in a destination. Using Internet of Things, we did a project in 2016, which were installing several sensors, Wi-Fi in concrete, Wi-Fi tracking, and one GSM sensor around the Sagrada Familia, and we could understand which were the mobility around the Sagrada Familia. So the visitors from where they were entering in the street, and those visitors that were entering from one street, which were the next street visited, and from where they were leaving the place. To get all the users that we wanted to study on, which we had to do some filtering, like we have to get rid of those users that we detect more than 7 days, so because they are residents, and also we have to get rid of those users that of those visitors that only stay less than 10 minutes, because probably they were visitors that just crossing and going to work and so on. Another example of using the data of Wi-Fi sensors are in a resort. From the Wi-Fi sensors that the Wi-Fi technology that gives to the guests, is we are able to analyze which is the mobility between the pool and the bar or the room. And also we can see which here is the time, the hour during the day, which is more the visitors try to the visitors spend in every place. This information can also be segmented and so on. Another project we are working on right now is TDS 2+, which is we are installing also several sensors, 3D cameras and 2D cameras. And these Wi-Fi sensors, we are able to make this correlate. We can track the users between different places. So we will be able to understand the percentage of visitors that visits a beach, and which percentage of them they visit inland areas, for example. We are exploring how we can also make segmentations of detecting children. Since this project is from Turística and Familia, which is a family project to understand that family tourism, we want to understand which is when we are measuring the number of people in a beach, we are trying to understand a percentage of them they are children. So and we are trying to do it measuring the height of the people. I think we have here some chat that I cannot see. But current challenges. We have seen here several projects that try to understand visitor flows, but we want to go a step further, and we are working now in making predictions, but also not only to make predictions, but making prescriptions. So how we can be able to make people move to the areas we want to move in real time, depending on what's happening in a city or in a destination. Here from the Ajuntament de Barcelona, Barcelona City Council, we are working in a conceptual and explorative management framework to manage this the massification that were before pandemic, trying to understand the information of visitors, where they move on, where they are the massification, and trying to impact in this mobility in his visitors, trying to inform them about the information in real time. How we can do that? This is an example of what we are proposing here. So we have left the visitors. We get information from several sensors, applications, and so on. We do all the process analysis to the server. We also plan to make like a dashboard that can be managed from human behavior, so from humans. So it's not totally automatic. But at the end, the main goal is to, from this data, trying to impact on the users to the visitors in real time. And how we plan to do it? We plan to do it making advertising in Google Ads, Facebook, Instagram, which is able to make to configure this advertising based on in real time, which trying to move to places that are not massified. Okay, and also with an application that we can get information about real time booking engine in attractions. So we will be able to get information about which are the attractions that will be more affluence during the next hours, because we can connect to these booking systems, and then we can suggest to visit other places. And last but not least, here also in Costa Daurada and Terres de l'Ebre, we are working in a project that we get information from sensors, and we give these information to visitors and making suggestions of places with less overcrowded. Okay, so we are installing these sensors in several beaches, and we can inform visitors which are the beaches less occupied, and suggesting those that are with less people. We also connect here with the API of parking, so we get information in real time of the parking slots, and we can inform the users which are the parkings with more facilities to park. And at the end also we can give information. We are developing gamification techniques, which will be able to make some geocaching games to trying to move the visitors to other areas with less popularity, so they can discover hidden objects in these places. And that's all. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Joan, for your complete presentation and the many aspects that you were introducing. Unfortunately, we have not too much time for questions, but at least we have a list for one, and there is one of the attendees, Hussein Ibrahimov. Sorry if I'm not saying correctly the name, that he has he announced two questions. Please, Hussein, could you tell us the questions? Write it, yeah, better. Okay, this is question one. What is the data source for booking platform and GDP tracking? The data is open for public? Booking platform and GDP tracking.
GDP? GDP, I don't understand.
Yes, I mean this GPS, not GDP. The data,
GPS, okay.
Platform, the data is, if he's asking if the data is open for public. GPS.
The booking platform. Okay, GPS. In case of GPS, we have two options. One is getting the GPS from our own apps. So we have developed an app for visitors. We can get information from this app. And Another option is giving GPS devices to the visitors. So we need people making surveys and also giving the GPS devices, and they have to bring them back. So this is a study. This is not a technology that can be run every ongoing. So we just in a particular time you do this demand work on field. And the last, the booking and attractions, we contacted to those booking systems that were implemented in Barcelona city center. There are 2 of them, and we have connected to their systems, and we can get, but just for our analysis and to publish it in an application. But unfortunately, they are not open. But the results are open. When the application will be finished at the end, it will be open, but not the information from the booking system. We did an agreement for that.
Thank you, Joan. Hussein has another question, that is how the device that we use in the TDS2 Plus project distinguish between tourists and normal residents. But I invite you to answer him in the chat, in the YouTube chat, because we are now on time, and then we have to go for the next presentation. Of course, if you have any other question, you can write it in the YouTube chat, and all the presenters could engage in a question and answer process. Of course, there is all the information. There is, the abstracts, and with the email of all the presenters, so you can go and use this information in order to follow the conversation. Now, thank you so much, Joan. And now we go for the
thank you.
For the next presentation. That is the presentation that it's made. The authors are Aaron Gutiérrez, Toni Domènech, Benito Zaragozí, Daniel Miravet, Oscar Saladié, all of them also from our team here in the University of Rovira Virgili. And Daniel Miravet will be the presenters about the implications and opportunities of multiple data sources for studying the mobility of residents and visitors in tourism regions. Please, you are here, Daniel. When your floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be able to present this afternoon here with you. And I think I'm following a very interesting presentation now. Okay, the presentation of Joan Borràs, and it will be difficult, I think, because he has presented some topics which are very connected with what I'm going to talk about, but besides, he has done it very well. So for me, it will be a real problem, I think. So I'm going to share the presentation with you. Okay, as I said before, not me actually, Salvador has said before, this research is called a review of implications and opportunities of the multiple data sources for studying the mobility of residents and visitors in tourism regions. And actually it's a kind of review of sources of data which are available. It won't be such an in-depth analysis with such a variety of sources as the ones that Joan Borràs has explained to us, but we'll try to approach some of these specific sources to apply data. And in this case, we'll show some examples that have been used here in our region. So first of all, we have to think about why mobility at tourist destinations is important. Why do we need to study this? Okay, we have to think that mobility at tourist destinations is important because how this mobility is organized has an impact, okay? And since this impact has a diversity of concepts or ideas or ingredients that must be taken into account, that makes it really important for the local managers of the area. And these ingredients, these challenges are, first of all, environmental sustainability of the area. In the second place, we have to think about competitiveness, and in the third place, we have to take into account also that while tourists are moving, residents are also moving, and this sharing of the space and also the transport modes is important. So nowadays we are all aware of the impact, the external environmental negative externalities associated to mobility of tourists at destination. Okay, they are not that different from the consequences of residents' mobility at the destination. Okay, there is evidence on the emission of greenhouse gases. There is evidence on the impact on air quality. Also, noise, even light, are important. And finally, another important consequence is that heritage can be damaged because of this, because of pollution and vibrations associated to transport. Regarding destination competitiveness, okay, the first idea that we have to take into account is that inter-destination mobility is an essential part of what the stay of the tourist is at the destination. Okay, it's central for his experience. He can be satisfied or unsatisfied because of this experience with mobility. Okay, regarding public transport, since many tourists that arrive don't use a private vehicle, public transport is very helpful since, first of all, it aids tourists to arrive to certain places that otherwise they wouldn't be able to reach them, okay? And it also helps to increase the number of visitors to certain attractions, okay, which are not that central, okay? And another important issue is that in urban spaces, and also it can happen in coastal spaces as well, it helps to avoid congestion in central parts, which are the ones which receive the largest numbers of visitors at the end. So it helps to spread visitors around, avoiding to some extent congestion. Okay, and in many cases, transport can become also an attraction by itself. We have the Blue Train in Barcelona, the train to Núria as well. So transport can become an attraction by itself. Regarding walking, what evidence tells us is that walking is one of the best ways to get to know a place which is being visited. Okay, surveys we have been done before. They show the results that people, okay, think that they can visit a place when they are able to walk through it. So walkability, because of this, becomes a key element of the tourist experience. Okay, the more walkable a destination is, the more opportunities that tourists will have to visit the place. So a better experience can be obtained from this. Okay, and other authors have signaled that these pedestrian, these walkable areas work as a magnet for visitors. Okay, so they can help to build this good experience of the place. Regarding cycling, okay, it has been also considered, okay, as a good element for creating regeneration of urban spaces. Yeah, And there is not driving in this slide, but according to authors like Array, it says that it's a very good way to get a good experience of freedom at the destination. Regarding this, we have this third element, which is how these needs of locals and visitors meet at the destination. Okay, and the first inconvenience we find is that the public space has not been designed to accommodate the arrival or even the massive arrival of visitors. So it is important that we have strong infrastructures that are able to accommodate, or we don't reach a threshold at the destination where these local infrastructure are not able to stand the arrival of tourists. Another important issue is that there is a balance between livability for locals, environment, and the arrival of visitors. And this, unfortunately, this balance is not easy to successfully be reached. Which consequences we find? We find them in all the modes, okay? For the first place, for the private vehicle, there is road congestion, pressure on parking facilities, road safety, okay? Regarding public transport, we have problems of service capacity. There can be also operational disruptions, okay? And another problem is related to sightseeing buses. These buses tend to meet all together at the most important attractions, and they can create high levels of congestion. We have seen private vehicle, we have seen public transport, but we also have to take into consideration what happens with walking or even cycling. The arrival of massive numbers of tourists or visitors can result into a high level of congestion of the public spaces. We see spaces like the Ramblas in Barcelona. So even walking, these problems can be found by the residents. So here I have titled this slide, The Importance of Data, okay? And why is that? Because given all these challenges and problems that we have to face, it's very important that appropriate planning and management of mobility at tourist destination is reached. It's clear that many cities have made a huge effort to plan and manage their residents' mobility. But in fact, these urban plans, these mobility urban plans that make a real effort to design policies to cope with these situations completely forget, or in most of the occasions, forget about this visitors' mobility. And that's a real problem, actually. If we are able to handle this visitors' mobility in these mobility plans, we might be able to catch up with the rejection that many of the tourist activities generate in some spaces. But important thing, and this goes directly to the title of the slide, proper planning requires proper data. And proper data regarding to visitors' mobility.
Sorry, Danny, just short.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very, very slow. Okay. Here we have in this slide a graph with the evolution of public transport demand. And here we can show how the demand is very different depending on whether a place receives visitors or not. And the issue is that we have to face here seasonality. If you look at this graph, you see these peaks here, okay? These peaks here refer to the high season in the tourist places like Salou, La Pineda, and Cambrils. Tarragona and Reus have also peaks of demand, but they are not that big. If you can see, the rest of places show a much more stable evolution. Okay, traditionally, this data regarding tourist mobility has been obtained through travel diaries, which ask tourists where did they go, on also maybe the mode of transport they have used, and also tourist surveys. Some of them ask some questions about mobility. Which problems? First of all, we have a lack of proper detail. We may know where these tourists have been, but we don't have information about how they have reached these places. Okay, and another big problem is that we have a fixed image. So this seasonality that we saw in this graph, we don't have a real good track of it. Okay, there is also a problem of the size of the sample, and also people may recall badly how they moved around previously. So now we are going to have a look on new sources, more technological way of tracking mobility of tourists. Okay, it's very related to what we have saw before with Joan's presentation. Okay, in first place, smart travel card data. Every time a person gets on a bus, the machine, when he validates the card, gets a record of the trip. At the end of the year, millions of observations are gathered, and while researchers have used this data to analyze residents' mobility, in the case of visitors, it hasn't occurred in this way. Okay, it's difficult to analyze this information. Most of the times, transport authorities don't have the knowledge to use the information. Okay, so it is good to collaborate with the research institutions so that data can be explored. Main advantage: we can track these dynamic characteristics of the data because we have total flexibility of time and space dimensions, and we have all data of all the universe of people using public transport. There are also disadvantages. Of course, there is no track of socioeconomic information or characteristics of the person who uses the public transport, and sometimes there is lack of information regarding the bus stop when the person gets off. There is also lack of information regarding alighting and so on. Here there is an example. Okay, here in Camp de Tarragona, we have noticed that in the summer, okay, the time to get on the bus is the time required to get on the bus is much lower because tourists, they use more coins rather than transport car in comparison to the residents, and it delays the process. And here we have the example. Since we have 9 seconds during the winter, when there are many residents, during the summer, the time increases 5 seconds per person, which is a lot. So here there is a description of a campaign to convince visitors to use the smart travel cards, which make the process much quicker. I won't go much through mobile phone data. All mobile phones connect to antennas, and they allow to get location information about the user of the mobile phone. Okay, it has advantages such, again, the flexibility of time and space dimensions. It captures all modes of transport. The samples of data are not that huge as the public transport authority wants, because we don't have the full universe, but they have a lot of data. And as I said, residents and visitors are easy to be distinguished. The inconveniences, main inconvenience probably is the lack of precision to distinguish each mode of transport, and also the lack of information of socioeconomic data. Here is another example. Okay, we can compare mobility in winter and in August, and it shows us that in the summer the mobility in this area just boosts. We have other sources of data. Okay, we have visitor destination cards, georeferenced social media, geotag photos, and mobile applications, other source of mobile applications. Okay, they have this kind of advantages and inconveniences as the sources of data we have shown before. Okay, at the mobile phone, sorry. And we have also some other non-technological sources of data. We have a version of mobility surveys that it's a more exhaustive one that combines mobility questions, travel and stay characteristic, and socioeconomic data. Okay, and we have also a cheaper way of getting information that it's making traffic measurements. Okay. The main advantage of exhaustive travel diaries is that they collect information, specific information about the person. So we can associate it. We can associate mobility with causes or reasons that are the source of that behavior. Here there is an example of Salou. We can compare here how residents and tourists move around. We have that tourist mobility is much more sustainable using active modes. And finally, we have non-technological sources of data. We have these traffic flows. And we can see here how in Salou, also in this area, there is this explosion of the active modes during the summer. Okay, just to finish, we have the concluding remarks. Okay, mobility is important for tourists because it's an essential part of their tourist experiences. There are some challenges that must be met. Okay, and the main problem here is that a complexity ingredient is added to the equation, which is seasonality. So we need better data, and the combination with traditional sources of data and with these more technological sources of data can help to improve a lot in this better planning and management. And thank you. I think more or less I've been able to finish. So if there is any question, I will be happy to answer it.
Thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. You are out of time, so I invite all the attendees that have probably questions about your presentation, because you have been very comprehensive, and then there will be many questions that could arise that contact you directly by the chat, and then start a conversation there, because we go directly to the next presentation, the presentation of Czesław Adamiak. I hope I am saying your name more or less right, who is coming from the Nicolaus Copernicus University in Toruń. He's going to talk us about measuring the impact of COVID-19 on destinations based on large-scale data on Airbnb rentals. Please, Czesław, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for letting me participate in this interesting, inspiring event. I will present an empirical study, which is a work in progress, so I will be happy to get questions or comments afterwards. I hope I will finish in time, so I hope we have some time for questions. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the study is very much related to what we have seen in the keynote lecture. I'm also researching the differences in the impacts of COVID on different destinations. But I'm not primarily interested in the differences between countries, but between national destinations, precisely between cities, resort destinations, and rural destinations. Based on existing early research, expert opinions, media reports, market research, I formulated two hypotheses. First states that during the pandemic, tourism, precisely tourist arrivals, decreased more in urban destinations than in other types of destinations, non-urban destinations. This claim is supported by the fact that urban destinations, cities, are usually more popular international and business tourist destination, and international and business tourism is particularly affected by the pandemic. And the second hypothesis is that resort destinations, understood as destinations with high density of tourist infrastructure and tourists, are more affected than rural destinations. And this assumption is justified by many opinions that state that tourists during the pandemic tend to choose places which are not so crowded, not mass tourist destinations, but rather rural mountain nature destinations where it's easier to keep social distance, and also all the restrictions posed by the authorities to contain the pandemic are not so burdensome like as in cities or other concentrations of population. To verify this hypothesis, I use data scraped from the platform, from the webpage of accommodation platform Airbnb. Airbnb has a very nice feature for this study, that it's present in almost all countries of the world. It is obviously a provider of accommodation. You can call it a sharing economy or platform or an online tourism agency. And each guest staying at an Airbnb accommodation is encouraged by the platform to post a review after his or her stay, up to 2 weeks after the stay. So my idea is that by counting the reviews that were posted to accommodation in certain destination and comparing those numbers in the year 2020 with the numbers in the previous year, reference year 2019, we can calculate rate of change and see how much the number of guests decreased as an effect of the pandemic. Then, by comparing these rates of decrease in different destinations, we can compare the effects of the pandemic on destinations. I will present 5 steps of the analysis. I will present jointly the details of the research procedure and the results. The first step was to construct a data set of Airbnb offers, 1.4 million offers that were active on the web page, available for rent in 5 time points over the last 2 years. It is important because it means that those offers were not taken out from the platform during the pandemic. They were still, all the time, they were available to rent. And then, based on this data set, I delimited destinations of those 3 kinds that I talked about when I was explaining the hypothesis: urban destinations, resort destinations, and rural destinations. Both urban and resort destinations are cluster destinations, so these are places where there are many Airbnb offers located close to each other. And I delimited those clusters using dbScan density-based clustering method, which is good at detecting irregularly shaped clusters. And urban destinations are those that are located in urbanized areas of large cities, so cities with at least 500,000 inhabitants or capital cities. Both limits of urbanized areas and populations of the cities were taken from a natural Earth GIS database. Resort destinations are cluster destinations that are not located in urbanized areas of big cities. And then rural destinations are regions. They can be either administrative regions of large countries or statistical units of the first level of countries covered by Eurostat statistics, or in other cases, simply entire countries. Regions that have relatively many Airbnb offers located outside of urbanized areas and resort destinations, so located in dispersal outside of the cities. On the map, you can see an example of this delimitation, the northern part of northern France. You can see the urban cluster of Paris, several resort clusters on the coast, and rural destinations marked in green. The next step of the analysis was obtaining the dates of posting reviews for a random samples of 300 offers per destination. This reviews, the dates of reviews are later counted in each destination by dates, and as a result, I calculated the rates of change of the numbers of reviews posted in the entire period of the study, so between the end of December 2019 and the end of September 2020, compared to the same period in the previous year, 2019, so starting from the end of the 31st December of 2018. Later, this entire period was also divided into three shorter sub-periods. I'm planning to extend this study until the end of 2020, so that I have the data for the entire year. And here we can see the basic results. So on the plot, each dot represents one destination. And the color of the plots, the color of the dots, represents the type of destination. And vertical position shows the change in the number of reviews. On the left-hand side, change of the number of reviews in the entire 2020 until September compared to 2019 until September. On average, the destination lost 39% of reviews, and we can clearly see the difference between urban destinations in red, resort and rural destinations, while the difference between resort and rural destinations is not so well visible. On the right side, we have the same plots for shorter periods: winter, spring, and summer 2020. The same results can be presented here on maps. I'm afraid on the YouTube stream the maps are not well visible, sorry for that, but at least in the Zoom participants probably can see it properly. The upper maps show only urban destinations, middle map show resort destinations, lower map rural destinations. And we can see that in the two lower parts, pairs of the maps, there is quite a lot of yellow colors, yellow circles, and yellow represents this moderate decreases in the number of reviews, while the urban destinations are more often red on the map. And red colors, red circles represent the deep, strong decrease. But apart from the differences between types of destinations, we can also see the differences between countries. For example, the large countries with big domestic tourism markets are, in general, have lower decreases, particularly in rural and resort destinations. US, for example, France, Germany, than small countries more dependent on international tourism. I will also quickly show the same maps for 3 shorter periods. In winter, we can see red colors only in China and also neighboring Eastern Asian and Southern Eastern Asian countries. In spring, red colors are everywhere. This is a period of lockdowns and strongest travel restrictions, but still in the United States, for example, in rural destinations, these decreases were not so strong then. And in the summer period, we can see many colors on the map. There is a big variation in the values of these rates of change. And there's quite a lot of destinations that are represented by blue colors. And blue colors means that the number of reviews in 2020 was higher than in 2019. It applies particularly to many destinations in Europe and North America, rural and resort destinations. I said and I showed there are differences between 3 types of destinations, but there are even stronger differences between countries, which result from different epidemic situations in the countries, different characteristics of Airbnb market and regulations, and different proportions of international and domestic tourists. So to get rid of this impact of international differences and look only on the differences between types of destinations to verify the hypothesis, I used the linear mixed effect model with country as a grouping variable and including both fixed and random effects of the type of destination. Additionally, I added 2 controlling variables to the model, one that should reduce the impact of international differences in the proportions of international tourists visiting different destinations within the country, and the second that should reduce the impact of seasonality in the model that the first model that where the dependent variable is rate of change for the entire period. And these are the results of the models. The most interesting, most important part is the here. So these are the confidence intervals for the estimates of fixed intercepts for the 3 types of destinations. So how much the number of reviews has decreased after controlling for other variables and also for the international variability. You can see that this confidence interval for urban destinations is disjoint with confidence intervals for resort and rural destinations. So there is a remarkable difference between urban and other types of destinations, while the intervals for resort and rural destinations overlap each other. So there is not such an important difference here. So the results of the model positively verified the first hypothesis that tourism arrivals decreased more in urban destinations than in other types of second hypothesis about the stronger impact on resort destinations was not supported. In general, the decrease in tourist arrivals in destinations during the pandemic is highly varied, both between countries and also within countries. And these differences have grown in the consequent stages of the pandemic. And it will be interesting also to see how it looks like now in autumn. Obvious limitation of this study is that Airbnb does not represent the total of tourism. Many studies show that short-term rentals are not so affected by the pandemic that they are hotels. That's why in the future it will be useful to join this kind of analysis with official statistics when they are available to provide more internationally comparative and also detailed territorially and temporally analysis of the special temporal effects of the pandemic on destinations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Czeslaw, for your interesting presentation. There are at least two questions now in the YouTube chat. I am going for the first. It's from Itriatai, one of our doctoral students. He's asking you, can we think that there are geographical differences in the rural destinations hypothesis? I state this because Mexico and Brazil had Airbnb fully occupied during the pandemic. What do you mean?
Well, if you look at this first map that I showed, in fact, for example, in Brazil, there was one rural destination, Sao Paulo, state of Sao Paulo, where in the entire period the number of reviews increased compared to the previous year. So there are some destinations where there was even no negative change at all. But as I showed, the general on the global scale, rural destinations did not differ from resort destinations in terms of the decrease in the number of reviews, but they were lower than in case of urban destinations. I don't know if I
okay, thank you. Oops. There is another question. This is from Mohammed Alwaik. Is there any, there is also a comment from Professor Russo, but it's a general comment about the interest of your presentation and the complementarity of your presentation with the one from Dr. Zhang, in the sense that offer insights on the uneven spatial tourism typology impact of COVID on tourism mobilities. There is, this is a general comment. I'm going for the questions, for the specific questions. Mohammed Alwaik, it's asking you, is there any alternative places that are offering safety and security for hosting tourists in tourist destination during the COVID-19 pandemic?
I'm not sure I understand correctly the question, but for sure, the rental of entire apartments is considered to be safer than some stays in collective accommodation at hotels, but I cannot. I'm not qualified to tell whether it's actually so. The hotels have introduced the safety measures and try to convince people that they are enough for guaranteeing the safety and security. There are for sure some studies that from the medical side that verify how it really is. But what interests me is how tourists perceive this safety and how it affects their choices. Probably it's like this, that many tourists choose apartment rentals because they perceive it more safe than hotels.
Thank you, Zdzislaw. There are some other comments. Also, there is another question from Volkan Thogal, but I invite you to answer him through the YouTube chat in order to go to the next presentation now. Thank you very much, Zdzislaw.
Thank you.
Okay, so we go for the fourth presentation of this afternoon. This is from the team from the Rovira Virgili University. In this case, Antoni Domènech, Antoni Gutiérrez, myself, and Daniel Miravet. It's about walking the tourism city, family tourist activity spaces in coastal destination. I guess that Tony is ready for giving the presentation. Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Salvador. Good afternoon, everybody. I guess you can see now the slides, right? Okay. So on behalf of my co-authors and myself, I'm gonna present this study that we entitled "Walking the Beach Tourist City: Family Tourist Activity Spaces in a Coastal Destination." First of all, I would like to introduce you to the context of the research, and in somehow you all know that tourist activities, the activities of residents and workers in a different way, tend to be recurrent and repetitive over time. But tourism was traditionally seen as occurring outside those routines. So traditional sources for mobility analysis, such as population census or travel diaries, have conventionally neglected to monitor the tourist spatiotemporal behavior, and also showed significant deficiencies in monitoring mobility linked to leisure or other purposes not directly related to work or study. During the last 15-20 years, the advances in tracking technologies such as GPS devices, mobile positioning, or geolocated social media content have opened up unprecedented and multiple opportunities for the analysis of tourist mobility, especially due to the high resolution of the spatial and temporal data that is collected on a daily basis. But these new data sources present important drawbacks. I will not go into each one of them, but here we have a summary of the main drawbacks. For example, those that you can see in blue boxes are those related to mobile positioning or to social media sites. These are mainly related to the unavailability of socioeconomic and demographic attributes, or to sample selection bias due to the user penetration of social media sites, or also another one which is related to the design or the structure of the data sets that are not thought for modeling purposes or mobility modeling purposes. Also, there is the issue related to the spatial resolution, and depending if it's higher or lower, you can perform one kind of analysis or another. Also, we have other drawbacks related to GPS devices when we do some experimental studies related to the potential representativeness bias of which is mainly linked to the engagement of the tourists in the participation of these studies, or the risk of loss of the GPS devices, or also the absence of socioeconomic information if a survey is not carried out. So One common limitation that these new data sources have is that we don't have information about the motivation or the purpose of the different trips undertaken by the subjects under analysis. And here is when the travel diaries, this traditional source that has been mainly used for monitoring residents' mobility, and particularly in metropolitan areas, take importance. These kind of sources, the travel diaries, have been scarcely used in tourist studies in general and in tourist mobility studies in particular. And to the best of the author's knowledge, they're used to monitor or to analyze the tourist spatiotemporal behavior on an urban scale has been more limited or even not implemented. Here's when I introduce you our study case. We have analyzed the tourist mobility in a particular touristic town located in the core of one of the most important sun tourist destinations of Spain. This is Salou, located in the Costa Daurada. And just to illustrate you the importance of tourism in this area, I'm going to show you a graph in which you can see the monthly distribution of tourist arrivals and overnight stays in regulated tourist accommodations from 2011 till 2018, in which, well, just to illustrate with numbers, in July or June, the number of tourist arrivals is around 12-13 times higher than the inhabitants of this town, which are around 27,000 registered inhabitants. This massive arrival of tourists during the summer months induce, as you can see, a seasonal behavior of the destination, and obviously it poses multiple challenges at different spheres, especially for the management of mobility, which is one of the most challenging aspects in a global context of increasing awareness for the configuration of sustainable mobility models, in which active mobility should be taking more protagonism than the one given to private cars until current times. Well, the data that we used was gathered in 2018. Different surveys, well, a total of 443 surveys to tourists were done in Salou, in the most frequented areas of the city. And the survey was structured in two blocks. One of them was collecting data about the sociodemographic and trip-related information of the individuals, of the tourists, as you can see on the left of the slide. And another block was related to the activity travel patterns of the tourists the day before. Okay, so the day before they were doing this survey, they had to somehow indicate the different trips they did, also indicating the postal address of the origin and destinations, the motivation associated to the different trips, the start and ending times, the time spent at the different destinations, and also the transport mode used in each of the different trips. As you can see in this figure, we could reconstruct the different tourist paths, reconstructing the different routes of the tourists, and also we could calculate other variables related, for example, to the direction. So if the trip was taking place from the inland towards the coast, it was categorized like that, or maybe the trip was taking place from the coast to the inland, which could be, for example, associated to displacement or to trips going to the accommodation, or if the trip was parallel to the coast, which could be associated with walking activities, for example. So we classified the data or the trips following the angle of the different displacements. Well, the research questions are multiple, and some of them are those that you can see right now on the slide. For example, we could ask what are the factors pushing tourists to move from or just not moving from the accommodation, or what are the determinants of the mode of transport used, or the areas that the tourists decide to walk through, or which are the areas where tourists stay more time. So there are many potential research questions that with kind of traditional sources applied to the analysis of tourist mobility that could be posed. But in our particular case, and I will show you now the data, we decided to focus on the familiar tourism, and Salou has done great effort in the last years to target this segment of tourists and to in somehow adapt the offer to promote a more sustainable way of tourism. So as you can see here, we have some data. We realized a first interesting fact that is related to the type of tourists that come, or the type of tourists that were surveyed. More than 90% of them were associated with familiar tourism. So we saw here an interesting fact. And another the second interesting fact is related to the to this data. As you can see, around 80% of the trips were carried out by foot. Okay, so here you can see that the total sample has decreased until 394. This is because 49 of the tourists decided not to move from the accommodation. So these 394 tourists did a total of 1,348 trips. And according to these two facts, the first one is that most of the tourists were related to family tourism, and 80% of the trips were carried out by foot. We decided to just focus on those tourists that were families or couples, and that exclusively did their trips by foot. So we kept a total of 197 tourists that represented more than 50% of the trips. Here you can see a spatial distribution of these trips in different time slots: in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and in the night. And here there is also a graph for each one of the representations in which you can see what are the predominant motivations, okay, of each one of the trips. So for example, in the morning stands out the displacements to the beach, and in the afternoon the main motivation is related to returning back to the accommodation, maybe considering the opposites, because some of the tourists go back to the accommodation to eat lunch. And in the night, for example, we can see that there is no activity at all. So to sum up a little bit, first of all, we did an a priori segmentation. After doing a data exploration, we realized that the research question should be if the different profiles of family tourism have also different spatio-temporal behavior when walking at the destination. And then we move forward towards a data-driven segmentation, implementing two different types of clusters. The first one was with the socio-demographic and trip-related attributes, considering the data of the 197 tourists selected for this study. And the other one based on the activity of these tourists, which is basically the 761 trips undertaken by these tourists. The method implemented was a K-prototypes algorithm that allows the combination of numerical and categorical variables. And here we have the results of the first clustering for the socio-demographic and trip-related variables. As you can see, The first profile is characterized by being formed by Spanish aged couples that stay overnight in second residences and apartments. The second profile is associated with international families with children. As you can see, 84% of them come from abroad, and they stay basically in hotels. And the third profile is composed by, okay, 5 minutes from now, thank you. And the third profile is associated with Spanish families with children that have short stays. Okay, so as you can see here, 73% of them stay 1 week or less. The results from the second clustering analysis are the ones that you can see right now on the slide. We obtained 4 profiles. The first one is associated to pendular mobility, and somehow are those that go to the beach and then go back to return to the accommodation. Why I say pendular is because if you see these 2 variables, which is the angle of the different displacements is predominantly perpendicular either to the coast or to the inland, then these displacements are concentrated in the afternoon. We have a second profile which is basically associated with displacements to come back to the accommodation that they take place during the evening. The third profile is associated to walking activities at a very slow speed. So somehow it's a kind of activity for just relaxing, let's say, that also take place in the evening and to a lesser degree in the morning. And then a fourth profile, which is associated to going to the beach. And as you can see, they are the ones that spend more time at destination, a total of an average of 6 hours. Then what we did, and I'm finishing, was interact these 2 analyses. On the left side, we have the clustering of the trips. On the right side, we have the clustering of the profiles on the basis of their sociodemographic and trip-related variables. And here we appreciated some interesting insights, let's say. For example, the Spanish aged couples do more trips back to their accommodation. This could be related to a major comfort or staying at home, eating lunch or eating dinner there. Or the beach trips are more characterized to be carried out by Spanish families with children. The walking activities in general are protagonized by those Spanish tourists, either the Spanish aged couples and the Spanish families with children. So somehow the study tests the potential of this traditional instrument to analyze the tourist mobilities somehow in a cost-effective way. It also demonstrates that coastal destinations are kind of complex at the time of analyzing the spatiotemporal behavior, especially when we consider a very similar profile, which is the family tourism. We have been able to detect different sub-profiles and also a very different way of moving in the destination according to their motivations. The data source also has some limitations. On the one hand, maybe the inclusion of some variables related to the education level at INET or the previous experience at destination or the knowledge of the destination could help to better identify tourist segments, or maybe we could also include questions related to the preferences or expenditure patterns. It could also help to untangle different determinants of their activity. And there are other limitations related to the fact that there could be a recall bias. Okay. But despite these limitations, I think that the potential is huge, and I think I should be finishing. So if you have some questions now, I can try to answer them.
Thank you so much, Tony, for this detailed presentation. Again, this afternoon, I invite you to ask him, to ask Tony or any member of the team that has been working this research by the YouTube chat. So we'll go to the next presentation and the next and the final presentation of today, the second session, that is the presentation of Albalat, Trapero, Pons, Travesset, and the Celis. They are from different centers in mostly in Andorra. The Center of Studies of the Snow and the Mountain, the Andorran Studies Institute, and the Andorra Observatory for Sustainability, and also Actua Innovació. And they are going to present about indicators and monitoring of the thickness of the snow cover, tools for the management and purpose of ski resorts. Please, Mark, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon. So I will share the screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Sí, creo que sí, ¿no?
Sí. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so we changed a little bit the approach. So given the other talks, so our main topic that we will discuss today is how we could better understand future tourist dynamics in winter destination, in ski resort destination. So we are in Andorra, as you know, so it's one of our main tourism attractions or tourism motivations that we have here. So in this presentation, I will talk a little bit of how we set up, so how to monitor both the physical and the socioeconomical dimensions of winter tourism in order to better understand, in this case, how climate change would affect in the future. So as most of you know, so we are a really small country in the middle of the Pyrenees, so only 77,000 inhabitants. However, we receive every year more than 8 million visitors. So we are one of the countries with highest tourist density. On the other hand, as you know, so we are a mountains country, so our climate is mainly a high mountain and Mediterranean climate. So we enjoy of good snow conditions during all the winter season, and this is one of the reasons that why ski industry is so important for us. However, as we already know, climate change is affecting quite a lot snow cover. So there is a high uncertainty of how climate change will affect snow cover. And this is a topic quite relevant for us of how future climate would affect tourist dynamics. For this reason, so we are quite working a lot in several, not only internally, but also in several European projects about better understand the future dynamics of snow cover. And this is why we set up a different monitoring techniques in terms to better understand the evolution of the snow cover. Not only in terms of natural snow, so then we can understand how different winter season performs in terms of snow dynamics, but also in terms of technical snow that we call that, as you know, so sometimes natural snow is not so relevant for tourist dynamics. Then we also are working on different technologies, that be GPS tracking or with remote sensing techniques, in order to better understand how is evolving our snow cover, and then how that would affect ski resorts in a future. Usually we link this snow condition or these physical conditions with a straight relation with the tourist dynamics or the future attendance. So that is, if we have a 20% less of snow cover and less ski days, so we will have a 20% less of tourists. That's not true. So we can have here a clear example. This is a ski resort in Alcalis, where we can have that a year with poor snow conditions, we have a peak of a lot of over the average attendance. However, a season like the 12-13 that we have good snow conditions, it's in this case a quite bad performing year in terms of attendance. Why is that? So this is for many reasons. One is that we are talking that tourism is one paradigmatic complex system. So in this case, we cannot analyze any destinations as a single or isolated entity. So they perform as an entity for a complex or for a more bigger system. And the other thing that is a thing that it's been appearing in other presentations. And for example, in our case, in terms of using surveys, we identified that only 5% of the skiers will stop skiing when poor snow conditions. The rest, so more than 90%, they will do some kind of temporal substitution or special substitution. That is, that they will look for another ski resort, or they will ski more often in the same ski resort. This is how it comes to action. So these technologies that we've been talking this afternoon in terms of how we can use geo-tracking, for example, with the mobile phone data. This is one technology that we are quite using here in the country. So we are using the mobile phone data in order to better understand tourist dynamics in the country by nationalities, for example. So where are the Russian concentrated in some days, so on. Or for example, to understand how people is going in one ski resort and what they do after, what they do before. In that case, relating this to different conditions, not only with state points and where they go and what they do after, so on. That it is very interesting, for example, when we can cross this with socioeconomic data, but for example, how this affects with the distribution of skiers, for example, one day with good climatic conditions, with good weather conditions, one day with bad weather conditions, and that link this climatic information or weather information with this socioeconomic information that help us to better understand this interplay between physical and socioeconomic dimension in terms of tourism dynamics. So in the first presentations, you were talking about how this information is relevant in terms of temporal and spatial data, but it don't have information about sociodemographics. So this is why the importance to link this with surveys or some other information. And also, for example, the drawback about the resolution. This is how the importance of play with multiple scales. And here is how we combine data from, for example, more at regional scale about the mobile phone records, and then we link this with, for example, with computer vision to better understand dynamics in more accurate places, like, for example, a pedestrian area. So combining all this, so we can have, for example, this is one dashboard that we have for the Ministry of Tourism, where crossing all this data and adding, for example, data from surveys and data from credit card transactions, we can better understand how different dynamics be influenced by weather or not, but to better understand the current dynamics in terms of, for example, nationalities, when they come, what they do, how they spend during 1 week, so on. And all this information can help us a lot to better characterize these dynamics in the present situation in the country. Okay, so going some other examples in this line. So these technologies are helping, for example, to better understand in one national park how tourists or how visitors move and how they, for example, perform in different weather conditions where they are in the park and what terrain they use. or, for example, use this kind of information at more a regional scale. This is a project that we did in Austria with the university, together with the University of Innsbruck, how linking all this kind of information can help us to, for example, make prediction models of how the tourist dynamics will evolve in a future based on the climate conditions. So this is another example that we did for Canada, where thanks to these different sources of data, gathering together and better understanding this interplay between physical and socioeconomic dimensions, we can better understand current conditions and then also project future climate scenarios and then try to better understand how that would impact in terms of tourist dynamics, not only regionally, but also locally within them. So just as conclusion, so in our case, winter is a paradigmatic complex system. That is a nice example of how this multidimension is so important. So we have these big challenges that how better understand this interplay between climatic and socioeconomic dimensions, and how these new technologies that we've been talking today, like the big data, smart data, be thanks to the mobile phone data, be thanks to GPS tracking, be thanks to some other technologies, is quite relevant, but it's not always enough. So this is, we have to keep working with surveys and some other sources of data that we will complement all this information, as well as in the case of the climatic, keep working with climate records and very monitoring strategies really based on terrain that could help us to inform this model. But it's really important, of course, to really work in this capacity to have multidimensional monitoring and modeling techniques that will help us to really link, in our cases, these two dimensions more in the climate, in the physical side, and in the socioeconomic side, that usually we work quite separately, but try to really foster this kind of two dimension or this multidimensional interdisciplinary approach that could help us to really better understand this kind of complex system. And of course, this capacity to play with this multi-scale approach in terms of also monitoring and modeling, to really playing not only in local scale or regional scale, but also both, because tourism is, as I say it again, is a complex system, and both scales are really relevant and have scale picture. Probably the outcome or the insight that we'll have will change totally. So this was just to give you some insights about how we are approaching this link between data, new technologies, and tourism in Andorra, and happy to answer any question that you could have.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark, for this amazing visual presentation. And I guess there are some questions, at least one in the chat is from Tiago Alice. And the question is, would you consider this research scheme, especially travel diaries, potentially applicable in tourist destinations that are large cities, metropolises?
Yeah, so this scheme about working in local and regional scale, and also with this interdisciplinary approach, I think it's extrapolable of any place. So always the problem will be the access to data. I guess here one of the privileges that we have in our environment is that because we are a small country and the proximity between institutions, it's a privilege in this case, and we can have this possibility to have access both the meteorological stations, data from the telecom company, so on. So always the limitation is not, I think, the framework, but is also the possibility to have access to this diversity of sources of data. So rather than the scheme, I think is when you go bigger in terms of big cities or also bigger regional scales or country scales, of course, I think the difficulty rather than this framework of multi-scale and multidimensional is rather the capacity to have access to these different sources of data.
If I might, Mark, I will add, or I will go deeper in your consideration about not only a small country, but also a country with few entrances. That it's really means that it's more a closed system. It of course is not closed, but it works like it was. Yeah. Those that are from elsewhere in the world, you should notice that Andorra is a very small country with only two main entrances, and then that gives some advantages in terms of controlling flows when sure. People it's inside. That it's quite different than a big city where entrances and exits of the city or metropole or any other place are bigger and are more. But that doesn't mean nothing about the interest and the good practice that you are showing us about how to combine these two different levels or of information, the physical one and also the socioeconomic one, in order to understand and to try to manage better one of your main resources, that is the snow and the snow for the ski. Thank you so much again for this. There is another question. It looked like Andrea Porta. Oops, sorry. It's there are more. Let me check exactly. There is one from Professor Russo. Have you tried to model the network effects between different destinations in the Pyrenees? That means not only Andorra. When one is affected by adverse travel events, how the others benefit from that? If you have this information.
That's exactly my PhD thesis. My PhD was about modeling. So this is what I exposed now. So most of the studies so far correlated that less snow conditions or less ski days correlated to less tourists in ski markets. So really my PhD thesis was try to model in terms of the whole Pyrenees ski resort how, because the vulnerability in different places will be different. So the climate change will not affect exactly Andorra, that Val d'Aran, that the French ski resort. So there are some more vulnerable than others. And this is how the importance of have these two dimensions linked is that because this different vulnerability, and because the survey that I showed that only 5% will stop here, the rest will look for another ski resort. It give a different side that rather than a big reduction of the ski industry, the whole Pyrenees, what you'll have is a redistribution between ski resorts, not winners and losers, but more or less sometimes something like this. And this is how we analyze how the different snow conditions or weather conditions in different tourist destinations affected this mobility between tourist flows. This is a little bit one of our studies we did. Some 4 or 5 years ago, and what we tried to characterize was this: try to not really predict, because there are so many variables that affect not only the snow conditions or travel distances or so on, but try to model more or less how these different tourist destinations and in terms of Pyrenees scale will be differently affected between this redistribution of flows based on the vulnerability of each tourist destination.
There are some more questions. Just I notice you, and please, if you can give a short answer. The first, it's about the data It's from Hussein Ibrahimov. Could you please let me know data source for climate variables? This is the questions. It's about data source for climate variables. Could you give a short answer? Or maybe could you email him as you like?
Yeah, so one of our institutions is now a mountain research center. So we have a network of weather stations together with the official meteorological stations of the meteorological service. So our source was mainly the data from the ski resorts that they gather in terms of snow cover, as well as the meteorological weather stations that there are in the country.
Okay, there is another one from Merizu. I don't know who is exactly.
Maria Esperanza.
Maria Esperanza. Okay, perfect. Maria Esperanza. Thank you for the presentation. But she's asking about if with the data that you have and taking into account the current situation, and how is going probably will go the current winter season. She's asking if you are able to predict the new dynamics of tourism taking into account the COVID. The question of the $1 million.
The point is that the COVID changed everything. So any assumption or any pattern that you can have as a trend, it's totally now erased. So that's we are using this kind of data to make scenarios for the Ministry of Tourism so far in order to assess, for example, rather than to predict that it's impossible, better to assess the impact in terms of socioeconomic impact, different scenarios. But to predict right now, I will give you an example, is very difficult because, for example, we are now closed. We're a quite well situation in terms of health here in Andorra, but we have the two borders closed. So yesterday or 2 days ago, we have one news from French that the French border will be open the 15th December. So if they open the border, there will be good news for us. But if they, for example, one single point that, for example, if they keep, how do you say, I don't know the English word of al toque de queda, the
curfew.
Sorry?
Curfew.
Okay, yeah. So if they keep that and they open, so we will have a really good January. If they keep, for example, closed, the scenario totally changes. So we can not predict, but make some future simulation and some assumptions. But the COVID is quite more challenging and it will be difficult to do predictions.
Thank you. There are two more questions, but I invite you to have a conversation through the YouTube chat. And because it's time to close now, I invite Professor Yang to make a short wrap up of the session, maybe telling us the main insights that he can share with us. Dr. Yang. Okay. Please. Yang, are you?
Yes, I have some. Yes,
Perfect.
I'm here.
So
I'm trying to summarize my feelings after this full wonderful presentation. I'm really honored to be here, and I had very good experience with all these four presentation, and I like all of them. This all presentation provide good examples how we can leverage the most advanced technology, different types of data sources, different type of analytic tools to improve our understanding of the mobility of tourists, like the most important component of everyone's experience. And also we can leverage the most advanced technology to facilitate the sustainable development. So in the first presentation, Joan's presentation, I like the table for different types of big data. I think that's going to be very, very useful for tourism researchers to be aware of the potential usefulness of each single type of big data. And also, like, this very detailed explanation on the potential use and the examples associated with each single type of big data in managing the tourist mobility. In the second presentation, Daniel did a fantastic job, to compare the new data with the old data or the traditional data. And I think Daniel elaborated advantage and disadvantage of different data source. I especially like the smart travel card example. And I know that Europe is doing way better job than the United States, right? So we do not have very developed a smart travel card system. So in other words, we can hardly get that data. And also the discussion on the technological source of data is very, very inspiring. And in the third presentation, I'm not sure whether I pronounced the name correct or not, Kazaslo, right? The Airbnb one, and this is the very comprehensive national worldwide data. When I saw it's 998 destinations across the world, including a large variety of countries. I was totally amazed. In the presentation, number of reviews were used to measure the demand of tourism at different nations, different countries, and the research hypothesis is very, very interesting and appealing. And then the last one in Mark's presentation, one of my most favorite today, right? So multi-scale analysis is very important. I particularly enjoy the question from the audience, whether it's applicable to urban destinations or not, right? So when we are coming up with a new research framework utilizing multi-source data, we also want to improve the generalizability, right? Yeah, it's working in a ski resort, whether it's available to work in the urban destination or more rural destination, whether it's be okay for a developed country or an underdeveloped country. So this is all the question we are interested in. Again, I really enjoyed today's presentation. I think that's a very good start for the conversation. And I also very impressed with the engagement from the audience on YouTube, and very, 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 very good questions and answers. And I really look forward to seeing some of today's presentation be converted into journal articles published in our top tier journals. Thank you. Thank you very much. Salvador.
Thank you very much, Yang. It's time to close the session of today. I especially want to thank you also because, as you said at the very beginning of your intervention today, it's Thanksgiving Day in the United States, and probably you have other issues to go. So have a very good Thanksgiving Day. And to the rest of the audience, thank you very much, the presenters, and also all the attendees for the questions that they have you have put. And remember, we are waiting for you tomorrow for the third session of this webinar. Tomorrow, Friday morning at 10, we will start with tourism policies, mobilities, place prosperity, and sustainability. Also with keynote presentation, in this case from Dr. Joseph Cheer, and then other 5 presentations from different people, both from our teams and from presenters that have been have here in order to share the results. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow, you all. Thank you.